The best of money matters. Wealth Tracker.
Welcome to the Wealth Tracker, where we dive into the uncharted territories of niche investment strategies that promise to redefine wealth. Hello, I'm Hongbin Jeong. Now, as family offices grow in scale, complexity, and ambition, their success increasingly hinges on more than just sound investment strategies. According to the newly released 2025 Family Office Operational Excellence Report by AlTi, the talent has emerged as the most critical driver of investment performance, with nearly 90% of family offices citing experienced professionals as key to success. Yet, as competition for top-tier talent intensifies, many offices are turning to outsourcing to fill strategic gaps, especially in high-demand areas like alternatives and private markets. At the same time, a generational shift is underway. A majority of family offices globally still own and operate family businesses, but many are now facing tough questions about succession, governance, and ownership. So how is the evolving role of investment talent shaping the future of family offices? And in what ways are family offices balancing the need for professionalization with preserving family legacy, especially across different regions? Well, to find out more, joining me now is Anthonia Hui, who is the head of Singapore of AlTi. Anthonia, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. Well, Anthonia, with growing complexity and the global wealth landscape, what are some of the most surprising or notable shifts you've observed in how family offices are evolving?
First of all, we are talking about family office phenomenon or development have been actually starting quite well developed in US and is now evolved over into Asia. And in fact, from our survey report, we find out 78% of the family offices were actually created in the last 15 years in Asia Pacific versus those created in Europe and North America. And that basically means more than 57% of the family office actually have at least one family member living abroad. And that basically more so for 76% of European family and 67% of Asia Pacific family are significantly having more family members living abroad versus than those 47% in America. So that actually created a huge amount of complexity of family harmonization, family wealth, and business succession planning.
Well, the report highlights that more family members now reside outside the office's home jurisdiction. How is this increased cross-border dynamic reshaping the way family offices operate?
First of all, it means the family office have to basically broaden their own perspective, their expertise, and networking support in terms of helping these extended family who are living abroad to deal with the issue, which is not just on investment, tax, and estate planning. And they need to find a better means to basically hold the family together, even they are living in different jurisdictions.
Okay. So what are some of the regulatory or operational challenges that come with, managing global families, particularly here in Asia Pacific?
I think a lot to do with certain families will look at those family members who have moved abroad to a high-tax jurisdiction or very country who have less security perspective, how they can feel that the family office can support these family by actually reaching out to local expertise and advisors to help them to build a cohesive and integrated support services to these people.
Now, the report also mentions that understanding the purpose of wealth is now a top educational priority for the next generation. Anthonia, why? And what does that actually look like in practice?
Actually, you'll be amazed. A lot of wealth creators, when they first started in the journey, is all about growing the wealth as fast as possible. But once they have met the objective or actually have reached the stage, they have multi-zero that can last for a few generations of the family, and they are still non-stopping and looking for more money to be created for the family. And why is that the case? Is because it becomes like a natural behavioral and mental exercise for them to feel that this is what they should be doing. But then through the process, they realize the more wealth they have created, they find that they have less family harmony as well as relations issue with those people who would be impact on those money. And so most of the time we find certain families will only trigger the question about why should they continue to do this is when there is significant family issue happen from death, divorces, breakdown of relationship. And so that's why it's important from our point of view is for the family to have to understand what is the intention and the purpose of having so much more wealth and what is the relationship they have to do with money. Because when they first created the money, they feel they are master of that wealth or master of that money. However, once they get past that stage and continue to do what they're doing, in fact, they reverse the role without realizing they become a servant and a slave of their money.
Right.
So this actually is often being overlooked by most of the wealthy family, especially the wealth creator. So we think that to have a understanding and for the family to define the purpose of this wealth would help them to create a tool that can activate the family to have a full understanding of where the history and the intention of having this wealth and how to actually set up a plan to basically understand with this ability to measure the achievement of the family value, the aspiration and the desired legacy. And for the next generation to feel that, especially those one who created wealth come from a certain industry or business that in today is being seen as taboo or not being environmental or socially friendly. And for the inheritor to feeling guilty, they are actually, or even shame to inherit such wealth from the last generation. So by giving them an understanding, a purpose, it gives them a sense of meaning, of intention, why this money can be deployed in a more constructive way, and for them to open ideas to look at philanthropy or broader community impact. And I think these are something that most of the family have overlooked because this create an ability to collectively bring the family back together, disregard which jurisdiction and country they are in, and help them to having a cohesive approach towards setting up a mission and with this purpose of wealth, and they define a shared goal, how they can actually get together and even creating annual meeting, workshop, or even retreat to understand, to have a dialogue or conversations among different generations to create that pathway for the family to utilize this wealth, not just for themselves, but also for the community or people they feel that they have generate the wealth from. So I think this is actually a more meaningful and natural development for a family to consider and utilizing and defining the purpose of the wealth and turn around to become the master of the wealth rather than become the servant of their own wealth.
Very interesting. Well, Anthonia, according to the report as well, only a third of families globally have fully developed plans for the use of their capital, and most of these strategies are investment focused. Why do you think so few families have fully developed plans around the use of their capital beyond investment strategy?
Yes, it's because can you imagine that you're the wealth creator? You spend your whole working life, heart and soul and blood and tears in creating this wealth. It would be difficult for a lot of them to disassociate and trying to understand why should I give away my hard-earned money to someone I don't know. And also a lot of them may felt that by giving money to help these people, it may not solve the problem, and which is not entirely incorrect. The important thing is a lot of us have not stepped back to think about it. Is it purely because of your hard work, your intelligence, and you're being lucky? That's why you are that wealthy and being so successful. But from my own personal journey and experience, it is a lot to do with the community, whereby these people are invisible to you, have created a conducive environment for you to thrive and to be successful. And because of that, if we are using the cultural aspect, especially in Asia, we believe in karma. And in the Western world, we believe in if you do good, the good will come back to you. And I think because of that, you are actually investing by giving and helping the community who have helped you to succeed by actually creating and pay forward another opportunity for your next generation to succeed in the way that you have been, or even better. And I think if we have come to understand this, then it is not a difficult decision to make, to consider making a plan to basically manage and utilize your capital, not just by creating more wealth for yourself, but also along the way creating wealth for the community. And because every single dollar we spend per day, no matter whether you are wealthy or you're an average Joe, you make an impact on someone's life. For example, if we go to a hawker store and buy a chicken rice, and it's not just feeding our stomach, but we help the vendor who provide the chicken rice, and then also the vendor who actually sourced the chicken from another vendor. So it is a whole cyclical situation. It's a chain effect, the impact on the whole community of the dollar that you have spent in what you are using for, whether it is for living, feeding yourself, doing a business, or even, going on a holiday. So all these have an impact. If every one of us think that way, then we realize that we would be more careful how to deploy every single dollar that we have in our life.
Right. So what strategies are proving effective in engaging the next generation in governance and succession? I mean, how is succession planning different for first-generation wealth creators versus multi-generational families?
Well, first of all, I think often heard from the current generation tend to say, I felt my children are not prepared and not ready to take on my business or to inherit this wealth. The reason why they feel they're not ready is just like in our generation, our parents think that we are also not ready. So it is a common, I would say, biases. But while we are educating our children, and with the technology age, that we have expanded our next generation's knowledge, the dimensions way beyond our generation, how could we think that they are not prepared? The only reason why most of the time we find the next generation are not prepared is we don't tell them the story, the history, why this wealth were originally from and how it was created. By having a storytelling, especially from the grandparents' generations, would help the now gen or the potential inheritor to have a sense of belonging. And also they are not being disassociated from the history and the hard work and the commitment, the value and the virtue the last few generations has done, which actually would impart a pathway and also an enlightenment, an orphan situation for them to feel, wow, now I know and I should be proud of my family. Not just because my father and my mother or my grandparents has won award as best entrepreneur of the year or being well respected in the community, but because I understand the journey, how they make to where they are. And with that, actually, they are more willing and being more open to actually take on challenges, which could be very uncomfortable from their outside perspective. Just to give you a personal experience, I went to a workshop whereby the now gen and also the parents' generation were attending together. And one of the sessions is to ask each of the now gen to talk about what do they personally feel and the takeaway when they were being asked to join the family business. And most of them felt, I was very worried that I'm not performing up to my parents' expectation. Some of them feel that I will never be able to meet my parents' expectation, and I can never be my parents, but I feel guilty that I failed them or I failed to meet their expectation. So can you imagine you're working with your parents, and why are they not feeling the same when they're working with an external organization? Not that they don't feel the same, but the whole internal pressure is so much larger when you're working inside a family. Where rather than you working for an external organization, you feel that you have an equal opportunity that you can perform like your other colleagues. But when you are inside a family business, you're being looked at by the other professional managers, say, oh, you're coming in here just because you are the owner's children. And so that's why it's important with the family working together, and especially when the parents trying to mentor the children to become their successor, to understand the psychology of the kid and be actually mentor them. Look as if you're mentoring your other professional staff that you have hired. And with a gap of distance, sometimes to use a professional manager to train them rather than you yourself, so that they have some breathing ground for them to learn how to get up to the pathway that you want to put them in the position. And often, many of the kids, when they work in the family business, they realize that that's not the business they want to get involved into. And in that case, the parents have to learn to let go and let the children to find their own aspiration and the things they want to do. And it doesn't mean they will not succeed in what they're doing if you have the right value for them. And it's important that I find that most of the time it's not the next gen not ready, but it's the now gen is not ready to let go. And because of that dynamic, it is often not being acknowledged by the now gen, because they feel, hey, it is my baby that I build up this wealth, this business. And that's why I do not want it to fail. I do not want to see it got being mishandled. Rather than they have to understand, once you get to a certain point, you have achieved something, you need to learn how to enjoy your wealth and the time that you have actually built from this wealth allow you to spend more time to get to with your family, and also to take back the time that you have not had to build your own personal passion, your hobby, to enjoy your life better, so that you allow space and opportunity for the next gen, and also for the other professionals who have been working along your way to build a successful business, to be able to carry on your legacy and your ability to see that this let go would actually have more positive impact than the negative impact you would have anticipated.
Right. I mean, it's a lot of pressure there just to continue that family legacy here. But Anthonia, overall, are we seeing a shift in how family offices define investment success?
First of all, let's just be realistic about it. Who created the wealth? It's the wealth owner, right? And in fact, most of the wealth were created by business. Not many people created wealth purely out of investment. So because of that, for a family office who purely set up to basically handling investment, and it's not a true representation of what most of the time a true family office should be. When you talk about family office, you have to look at their three pillars. Family means anything to do with the family affairs. Office is to do with the hardware. The hardware means the corporate governance, the collective of data, reporting, investment, selection of planning vehicles, legal advice, tax advice, those are the hardware. But what is the family side of it? It's the software, which is about family dynamic, relationship. Also in terms of extended family, internal family, also for new people marrying into the family, and all sorts of things. And legacy have not been properly addressed. Most of the time, the family office are purely dealing with the hardware. And then there is the administrative side of it, which is the concierge service, the helping the family, handling the schooling and lifestyle arrangement, holiday, and things like that. So If we truly run a family office purely for investment, then you better off call it as an investment office because they are not handling the other two pillars as what it should be. So I think most of the time people use a family office, a generic name, especially in Asia. We find some people even use family office in terms of provider as an immigration vehicle. And I think you have heard about there's an influx of family office in Singapore, and multiple centers now have propped up from Malaysia, Indonesia, Dubai, and Hong Kong, all competing for wealthy family to look at the jurisdictions to set up their family offices. But what is the intention of the family offices? It's not a tax vehicle. It is not an immigration vehicle, and it's not a product. It is an infrastructure to help the family to manage the wealth with the understanding of the family dynamic, the emotion attached to this wealth. These are the critical elements that most of the time we find the family office are not handling. And in Asia, we find a lot of family office usually were being tasked. One of the family member, typically is the eldest son or the eldest daughter, to run it. But these children are not trained family office professionals.
I mean, very well said here, Anthonia. Unfortunately, we're out of time. So some great insights from you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. And there are a lot more to share. So if you, any of the audiences are interested, please reach out to us and we are happy to share as much information for them.
Thank you so much. That was Anthonia Hui, who is the head of Singapore at AlTi. This has been the Wealth Tracker with me, Hongbin Jeong.
Before acting on the information on Money FM, please consider if it's suitable for your own investment objectives, financial situation, and risk tolerance. To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.